Fixé. Yes, كان لايف. ايه راه طه تقدر تولي عافاك اللايف فين كاين. So كاين شي حاجه
ما اعرفش صراحه نسيت ولكن الله ما تكونش
بلاش So hello everyone and welcome to our conference on investment under uncertainty and leveraging experts' views. So we are thrilled to have you all here today for what promises to be an enlightening exploration into this topic. So this conference is organized by Mate Maroc in collaboration with the Adria and La Faculté des Sciences Belmsic. So a special thanks goes to La Faculté des Sciences Belmsic for granting us access to this amphitheater here for our today for our conference. Our speaker is Anas Abdelhakmi. I invite you to extend a warm welcome to our speaker Anas Abdelhakmi. Anas Abdelhakmi is a PhD candidate in operations research at the National University of Singapore. Prior to joining NUS, he earned an engineering degree in industrial management from EMIN. So once again, thank you, Anas, for accepting the invitation, and the floor is yours.
Salam tout le monde, شكرا بزاف اللي جيتوا اليوم. It's an honor to be here. قبل ما نبدا بغيت نسولكم تبغوني ندوي بانجلي ولا دارجه ولا مخلط زعما كيف ما بغيتوا. لي تيم ساينتيفيك بانجلي. المهم غنحاول نمشي بجوج. And throughout the presentation اللي زعما صراحه I don't ما كنتسناش انا شي واحد اللي يسمع اول مره اللي غادي يقدر to get everything. So غوقفوني وقت ما بغيتوا throughout the presentation if you have any questions and anything. This is something that took me 1 year to work on. and انا براسي في الاول كنت دايخ and everything. So again شكرا بزاف جيتو, شكرا to ماتي ماروك و لا فاك بالمسيك for hosting and everything. So today I'll be talking about investments and the uncertainty. And basically, let's say when we have past data, we do machine learning models like linear regression and stuff to make some, like to predict the markets and to make some decisions. But like in the c'est que like those predictions that we do are often very uncertain. So we have a lot of noise in our predictions. So what we do is that we have expert views. So we have some expert analysts that have like enough expertise, and basically they give us some insights. So the theme of this talk is basically how do we combine those machine learning models from the data and those expert insights to predict the market and then make decisions. So first, I'm going to start with something totally unrelated to finance, which is a cow. So this is Penelope. Penelope is a cow. And basically, we have 3 pictures of Penelope. Donc, عندنا صورة من الجناب وحدة من القدام. And basically, what we want, like the question that we ask is, given those 3 pictures, can we predict the weight of Penelope? So I give you the pictures, and then basically you just predict the weight. So we live in a world, the answer to everything now is just, let's do machine learning, right? So basically, let's collect some data on cows, some age, shape, breed, and basically let's run some linear regression, some machine learning model, and then get the weight. I mean, that can work. Like that can work. But then is there an easy thing to do? Again, I'm not doing any rocket science. I'm just giving you pictures, and I'm trying to get the weight of this cow. Is there an easier thing to do? And basically, so this is an experiment that has been conducted by NPR. So NPR is I think we have, I think, can you مشكلة? HDMI or اسمحوا لي هذا المشكل كابل فتح عليه هنا يا. Okay, should work. طيب. Okay, اسمحوا لنا بزاف. Okay, so basically NPR, they did an experiment where basically they just asked random people. مشاو سولوا الناس عطوا لهم تصور and then سولوهم what do you think the weight of this cow is? Okay. And these are the results. I'm not sure if you can see, but this is like the diagram. So this is the weight of the cows, and this is the number of people that predicted the weight of the cows. I'll just tell you the numbers. So some people said it's 0 pound, so like the weight of the cow is like 0 kilogram. Some people predicted it's 3,000 pounds, you know, like 1500 kilo. But if you see the average, basically, if we see the average of the predictions, it's somewhere here. Then the average of predictions of people, like random people that know nothing about the cow, is basically the actual weight of the cow, with only 5% error. So, مشينا سولنا الناس اللي vraiment they never spent any day of their life like weighing cows or working with them or anything. But still, when we asked those people, I think they gave us like some insights better than any machine learning model we could have trained with no data at all. We just asked them, got their opinions, and then basically we got our response. So the question that we ask here is, what if we ask experts in the field? So basically, imagine كانوا الناس اللي خدامين like خدام شي فيلم حياته كاملة, and then you ask him, given this cow, given these pictures, what's the weight of the cows? Like, will we need that many views? Because here they ask like 17,000 persons to get the answer. So if I'm working with experts, will I need that many views? Will there be like much variance? Like قد يجي شي واحد يقول لي لا راه فيها 0 كيلوغرام, واحد يقول لي لا فيها 6000 كيلو. I don't think that would happen. And then basically, will it make sense to use the average where we can use every data point? So this is just to say that sometimes, like asking people, getting their opinions is as valuable as gathering data and doing that machine learning models. Let me just talk about something that we do in our everyday life. How do we use those expert views? So this is Google reviews. Like, بغيت تمشي كازا تاكل في شي بلاصه, what you do basically, you just open Google Maps, you check the restaurant, and then you check the reviews. So based on that reviews, so that's an opinion. You update your belief, and then you make a decision. So you predict how good that restaurant is, and then you decide to go there or no. Same thing with Amazon or Jumia and stuff before you want to buy stuff. So now let me talk about the financial market. So in finance, this is just an example of this is like the Dow Jones. So this is like a combination ديال I think 30 US big companies, and this is like their assets values. So this is like the price of the assets. And what you can see here is it goes up very steadily. So like very, very, very steadily. But once in a while, we have those bumps. So for example here, the stock went up suddenly. Why? Because the Trump government helped to the tax. That's like one reason. And then here it went down because again, there was like an interest rate hike. Again, Hadi, I think can guess it. So this was because of COVID and all the stock just went down. So basically what happens in finance is that most of the times what causes like those big shifts in the stock market has nothing to do with the stocks themselves. So basically if I give you, let's say if I give you 20 years data before of these stocks or like a lot of companies, and then I tell you, hey, can you predict what's gonna happen in these points? That's gonna be very hard to do. So in finance, basically, we have like many socioeconomic factors. So we have many factors. I don't know, we have a war here, we have some problem in this country, and that can affect a stock in another country. So this is something that it's very, very hard to account for just using data. It's very hard to just get all that data and then run some machine learning model and just predict what's gonna happen here. So what we do basically in finance is that we have like the investors, we rely on some experts. So an expert, he has like a lot of experience, he's an expert analyst, and then he gives some views. And then, so now the question that we ask is that how do we integrate those views to our machine learning model? So let me start talking about like the model that we have. So here I'm going to talk about the black literal model. I'm going to explain later what this means. But imagine this. So I'm standing here. Let's say I'm standing today. I have a bag of money. So اليوم عندي فلوس, and then I want to invest. So what invest in the market? And let's say I want to invest, and my investment horizon is, let's say, 3 months. So what invest اليوم? Because, and then in 3 months, I want to collect my money. So I want to see what's the market going to look like in 3 months, what's the return in 3 months, and then basically invest in the stocks that will go up, right? And then maybe short the stocks that will go down. So now I'm interested in what's going to happen, let's say in 3 months. And I have some data. So I know like what happened yesterday, the day before, the year before. So I have some data. So from that data, I'm going to explain all this later, but from that data, I just predict this RT there. So again, a has of Becquerel, like everything in squares is something that I can see as an investor. So if I'm standing here, I see the return on time t. What I mean by the return is just like maybe the price of the assets, or maybe like how does the asset evolve. Okay, so I can see the past data, I can see the prices of the market in the past, but then I cannot see the future. But then I just use that data to predict what's going to happen in the future. So I just predict, for example, if I have one stock, I'm just going to say, okay, I predict that it will go up by 20%, but then I'm only, let's say, 5% sure. So that's what I mean by mu and sigma. And then I have some experts. And let's say those experts, they give me some views. I'm going to explain how they do it later. But you can think of the experts is that someone who can see the future, but with some noise. Let me explain what I mean by this. So imagine this is my stock price. I'm standing here. Let's say this is in months. So I'm, let's say, month 6. So I'm in June. And then I want to invest in the stock market. Right? I have some data. And my investment horizon is in 3 months. So in 3 months, I want to invest now, so I can collect money in 3 months. Okay. So I use my past data. So I use basically what happened before. I can use some other data of other stocks, to just derive a prediction. What I mean by prediction is basically this. So I just predict basically that the stock price will be mu in 3 months. But then when I predict, I don't predict a single point. I have a single point, but then I also predict how sure I am. It's going to be mu, it's going to be like mu minus 2%, plus 2%, something like this. And that's what I mean by sigma. So here I predict that my stock price, my expectation, like what I expect is that the stock price will be mu, but it's going to be anything like in this region here. And that's what I mean by sigma. Now this is the true realization of the stock price. So this is the future. I'm standing here. I cannot see this green, like this green line, something that I cannot see. My experts cannot see it, but then they can see some very, very, very noisy observation of it. So what they can see basically is, I'm not sure if you can see this line here, but they can see basically something like this. So they can just see some noisy observation of what the future is going to look like in the future. And then from the noisy observation, they give me 1 point, which is, again, and omega here, what I mean by omega is just like how sure they are. So the bigger omega, the less sure they are. The smaller omega, the more sure they are of the of this future price of the asset. And then they give me a point here, the one in red. So they just give me one view. Okay. So again, the blue one is my prediction. The red one is what my experts tell me it is. It's still not true. So مازال داكشي ماشي بصح, right? But still, it's more close to truth than my actual prediction. So now the idea is like, how do we use both of these? How do I use my prediction and this expert's view to make a new prediction which is closer to the truth? And this is what we call, for people doing statistics here, this is what we call like Bayesian updates. Okay, so from those two predictions, I say I just predict a third point, which is now more close to truth. It's still not true. Yes, yes. Okay, so the blue one is something that I do from the data. Basically, we just call them backward equilibrium models. But what you do, and then you just select the best mu and sigma that will fit your data. So you can just take off like linear regression, just حاجة اللي will work the best on your past data. Yeah. Basically, I mean, they can, they can do that, but that wouldn't add any value for us. Yeah. But what we say here basically is that experts, I mean, يقدروا ياخذوا data, but also كما قلت قبيله, like they can use a lot of other factors. I don't know, there's a war in this region, so maybe I think this will affect the stock price in this way. So it can be objective, يقدروا ياخذوا data, but also it can be subjective. They can just say, okay, I think this is my intuition, from my experience, this is what's going to happen. Yeah, sir. Oh, for my prediction? Oh, it can be time series and it can be something else. But usually, yeah, if you want to do, I don't know, some Kalman filtering, some time series. No, usually no. Okay, so for my blue prediction, I say it's, usually we call them like backward equilibrium models. So basically, for my blue prediction, I just say that I look at my data, and then I take the best mu and sigma that fit best the data. Yeah. So those are from the data. They're not based on something else. Are there any other questions? Okay. So now I just use basically this red point, which is the experts, and then my blue prediction to make another prediction. So I do something in the middle. Okay. And this is what we call like a Bayesian update. So it's some kind of time series, but it's like one-step update. Okay. So now I'm just gonna talk about how do we do this. Okay. And just go on. Okay. And then basically after this, once I combine those two and I predict what's going to happen in the future, now I make a decision and I choose how to invest. So let me just give an actual example. Okay. So let's say I have 3 assets. So I'm in the stock market, and I have like 3 assets that I'm interested in, like, let's say, in investing in. And then I have 2 views. See, I have assets A, B, and C, and this is like the return, let's say, in 3 months. This is something that I don't know, but I only know like some prediction or like what's the observation of this. So I just say that with some uncertainty sigma. So sigma, the bigger sigma is, the more uncertain I am. And if you think of sigma as a matrix, then the more positive semi-definite sigma is, the more uncertain I am. So I just say that asset A will increase by 8%. This is my prediction. Asset B will decrease by 2%, and asset C will increase by 2%. So my mu will be something like this. So like 8% for A, -2 for B, and 2 for C. And now I have my expert views. As I said, like the expert, they just see the true return. They have some noise because they can't see clearly, and then they give me their predictions or their opinions. So I have here only 2 views for 3 stocks. So they say that asset A will go up by 10%, and C will outperform B by 5%. So Y will just be 10%, 5%. And what I mean here by this matrix P basically is this. So basically what they will give me is, okay, in the first line, they will give me 1 for A, so 1 view for A, and there is no view for B and C in this view, right? In the second view, they don't give any information about asset A, right? But then they compare B and C. So I have -1 in B and 1 in C. So I'm comparing the return of C minus the return of B. And this is what the view looks like here. So we can have like more views than assets, less views than assets, as many views than assets, it doesn't matter. Yes. Well, yeah, these are the views of the expert. Yeah, this is the view. Yeah, so like, let's say I have one expert. He told me, okay, this is how certain he is. But then he thinks that asset A will go up by 10%. And then C will be better than B by 5%. So here, like the views, they don't give you a view about each asset. Sometimes they can forget an asset. Sometimes they can compare 2 or more assets. So for example, for asset A, he gave me like a Dyke's view, what he thinks of asset A. But for B and C, he compared like the 2 views. Oh, again, so this is, so here we don't really model what, No, there is no mathematical formula. So this model, it was developed by like Goldman Sachs, I think in the 90s. And when they just started, like the idea was, okay, as an investor, sometimes I have subjective views. I have like my own preference that I want to include. And then how do we do that? Yeah, it's your own estimation, yeah. They don't give you the formula, they just give you the data. So they just give you this, yeah. And basically the idea, I mean, they give you this, and so for the omega here, this is something that you, like as an investor, I can compute. And I mean, the way we do this, I mean, if I have like an expert giving me, let's say, a view every quarter, like every 3 months, every 2 months, and then, so after he gives me a view, I go and see what's really happening in the market. So like, I can estimate how good he is, or like how certain he is, something like this. But for the view itself, yeah, it's something that depends on the expert. Yeah. Okay, so now the idea. Okay, so here's what happened. So this is my data says. My data says I expect A to increase by 8%. My expert says 10%, right? My data says here that C will be better than B by 2 minus -2, right? So it says that C will be better than B by 4%. My expert says 5%. So what I expect if I combine the 2 models, right? I expect that A should be somewhere between 8 and 10%, right? And C minus B should be somewhere between 4 and 5%. So this is what we expect. And that's what we call like a Bayesian update. But here's what happens. That's what I have. So this is my new, this is like my new, let's say, my new prediction when I combine the 2. So it's something, as we said, something times mu plus something times y. So I just combine mu and y. But then I have here mu times, so sigma is how uncertain I am. So the bigger sigma is, the more uncertain I am of my prediction. So the inverse of sigma is how precise I am. So you can see that if this goes to infinity, right, it means that sigma is 0. Yeah, which means that I'm very, very sure of my prediction. So I just predict a point. And if this goes to infinity, then this one we don't look at anymore. And then we have the opposite. And then I just normalize this, since I'm just doing this like times sigma, this time sigma, this times like omega, so I just normalize. Yeah. So for how sure I am, so this is my new uncertainty, right? And if you can see this, so this is sigma plus something that depends on the views. And usually this is like much smaller than my let's say it's smaller than, usually this one is smaller than sigma, if you think of it in one dimension. And the reason is, and this one doesn't depend on the y, so it doesn't depend on what my expert says. It just depends on how much I trust my expert. All right? And this is like my new uncertainty. Oh, shit. Sorry. No. Yeah, I think it should work. Okay. So basically, I mean, what basically happens is I have my view, I have my prediction, and then my update prediction is somewhere in between my view and my prediction. And then my uncertainty, so it doesn't depend on what my expert says. It just depends on how much I trust my expert. So إذا كنت عارف أن الإكسبرت واخا ما شنو يقول لي it's the truth, then my uncertainty will be 0. واخا يقول لي like ستوك يكون 10 ولا 20 ولا 30, always my update uncertainty غتكون 0 because I trust him a lot. If I don't trust him at all, then my uncertainty wouldn't change at all. واخا يقول لي اللي قال لي, my uncertainty wouldn't change. So like my variance, my update variance, doesn't depend on what she says, but it depends on how much I trust him. So on the omega. So the bigger omega is, the more I trust him. The smaller omega is, the bigger omega is, the less I trust him. The smaller omega is, the more I trust him. كيف في اللايف؟ Should we continue ولا نكملوا ولا؟ اوكي. HDMI. عندنا HDMI. HDMI راس. نجيب. ما كاينش HDMI راس؟ انا خاصني كابل ديال الراس. هادشي HDMI قال الاخر. ما بقاش كيدير.
ما عندناش الكابلات. تحمل الكابلات ديال ماشي ديجا.
والو.
انا بونس داكشي هو هذاك لا ما حاسوش
تبقى
طبعا هذا يصنفر شويه دوك الارجنتين
سوق العيش. علاش ما عيش HDMI هنا ياك؟ Ouais. تحولوا ثم نشوف. شوف لا جاب واش داير راه مزيان. مازال لي بين كاملين. لا بحال وحده وجنا. حتى اللي هنا. كيف انا ما كيتقشاش.
شوف
هذا اللي هنا.
داك الحق
لا شي حاجه.
هاد الاخراني
وقال عنده اجل تاعي.
هذاك كيلعب مزيان خسر خصني ما تقاد ليه الاخر ولا تمام ما فيش شي دابا
ولا كاين شي طابلو. ما كاينش.
اللي كان كابل بجا حتى هو مزيان غير كيف ما قلتي كابل خسر شي سواد تيقلب عليه مشى عنده الكابل ها هو سد عليه ما لقيتوش ما عيط ليه
الصاك لحظك. هذاك وكان هذاك فيها كامل.
في كامل.
كاش كامل. كاينش.
تيجي واش الاخر تيقلب عليه انا ما كنتش عارف عندي ديك ما عرفتش دابا هو ديما وتخدم في اش تي ام
داكشي هذا
ديال ليماج
داكشي كنت كنحسن.
داكشي ما
هذا تقدر كيفاش كلشي كيفاش.
سيمي المارشي بقى يسوق ويدير واحد لي جون الزرق اش تعني بلوش اش تعني اكسبير هذا كل الناس ديال
داكشي كما
اينشتاين قال لك لا فيديو اتر بلا 100% اش دابا عباد الله كلشي تيكونيكسيون حيت واحد ما قاريش يبقى يسكرولي بحال هكا وتلقى سميتو سهلوها بزاف هو ما فاهم والو شنو هو فهمتي
بصح.
انا ديال الماتش يخشوا حتى شويه لاكوجا باش ندير لافورماسيون درت سيستم قديم درت واحد الارقام دابا تدير التيوري ديال لي نومبر ماشي بحال داكشي تقرا انا درت اوتو فورماسيون كرت راسي واخا تقرا مني كيعجبني شي سوجي تنقرا فهمتي شويه كتفهم سي بيان تجي لك فوق هاد المطمع جمعيه زوينه وكلشي غير المشكل اخويا الوقيته اللي اختارتي بها لا كتدير نقول لك علاش اول حاجه
تسمعنا وقع صافي ماشي. سمعينا بزاف على التعطال. anyways we hope this is the last time. So حاجه واحده مهمه اللي غندوي عليها دابا and then we can move to more fun stuff. So okay, so this is هذه my expectation. So this is what I expect the price to be. Okay, and this it can be a vector. So if I have like 10 stocks, this will be like what I expect the price of the 10 stocks to be. This is my variance. So basically in finance, what we call like mean variance optimization. So what I want to select هذوك stocks that have the highest expectation and the lowest variance. Let me give an example. So let's say I compute my updated mean, my updated variance, and basically I find stock A will go up by 9%, stock B will go down by 1%, and stock C will go up by 3%. Okay. And then my variance is basically like this. So this just means the zeros here means that all the stocks, let's say, are not correlated. So if a stock A goes up, it doesn't mean that stock B, we don't know what's going to happen to stock B. This is what it means. But this is my variance for each stock. So for stock A, I have 9% increase, but I have a very high variance, which is like 50%. Which is like 50%. For stock B, I have minus 1%, and also I have like a very high variance of 20%. So I just say that this stock can be anywhere from like minus 21% to let's say 19%. That's what I mean. So when I make my decision, when I select the stocks or how much money to put in a stock, this is what I have. So stock A has the highest expectation and this variance. So I just put 18% of my money in this stock. Like forget about this gamma for now. So I just put 18% of my money in this stock. For stock B, my minus 5%, which means that I short the stock. So I'm selling 5% of the amount of my portfolio in this stock. And stock C, I put 75% of my money in this stock. So here, as you can see, basically stock A has the highest expectation. So هذول كبالي غيطلع بزاف. But still, I don't put all of my money in this stock. Why? Because it also has a very high variance. I expect بلي غطلع by 9%, but then I'm not sure at all. So it can be anywhere between, I guess, minus 30% and 50%, for example. So I don't put all of my money in this stock. Okay. For stock C, I only expect that it will go up by 3%, which is very little compared to this one. But still, I put 75% of my money in this stock because I'm very sure of what's going to happen here. So basically in finance, this is how we select the portfolio, what we call like mean variance optimization. So I just compare the mean to the variance. So if you have a very high mean, I see your variance. If it's very high, then I won't put a lot of money in it. If it's very low, then I will put most of my money in it, right? And if I expect that you will go down, so if I expect the price will go down, then I'm always shorting the stock. What I mean by shorting the stock, I'm just selling the stock. And then I make money on it. Okay. So this is what I mean by mean variance optimization. I will be back to this by the end of this talk. Okay. So let's just do an overview of this. So this model, it was developed by Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs, I think it's one of the leading banks in the world. And it was developed by Fisher Black and Robert Letterman in 1990s. So So this is widely used if you, like in finance, by hedge funds, by Goldman Sachs, like every time they give like a recommendation of where to, like how to invest, they just base their recommendations on this model that you've seen here. It's very simple, very easy to compute, but it's really, it's used a lot. And the thing with this model is that it does overcome some problems like input sensitivity. So basically, if my data is wrong, right, then I will rely on my experts. So I don't put all of my eggs in the same basket. So if, let's say, I'm not sure about my data, if we live in a very volatile world, let's say there is COVID and we can't trust the data anymore because we're in a very different situation. So now I will rely on my experts more. All right? And also like highly concentrated portfolios, which means as an investor, using this model, I can just input my subjective views. If I prefer to, let's say, buy a lot of Apple, then my views will be like Apple will go up. So the portfolios like constructed doing this are usually more diversified and they make more sense than just using machine learning and then selecting the portfolio. But still, we have like there are some limitations with this model. First is like what we said is that you have some data, your experts, let's say, give you views in 3 months. But what if I want to invest in 2 months? Let's say my experts, they tell me, okay, in 3 months, like Apple stock will go up by 10%. And let's say I want to buy Apple stock now, and I'm interested in buying the in 2 months. So I want to buy the stock now, but I want to go out in 2 months. So how can I use this view? So using this model, I can't. Let me just give an example of this. So basically, I have my data, I see everything, I make a prediction, this is in blue, and my experts, they give me this red dot, right? But let's say now my investment horizon is this. So let's say now I want to invest in 2 months, but my view is still in 3 months. So how can I use this view to make a decision على قبل هنايا? So إذا شي واحد قال لي Apple stock will go up, let's say by 20%. من هنا like I don't know من هنا July. But then I wanna invest now, and then بغيت نبي of June. I wanna know what's gonna happen in June. So how can I use the view about July to go back in time and see what's gonna happen in June? So this is the first thing, and this is something that the classical black litterman, الموديل اللي وريتكم دابا, we don't know how to do it using that model. The second thing is, are we missing on any hedging opportunities? And what do I mean by hedging opportunities? Let me just give you an example. So let's say, again, I do my prediction, I have my view, and this is my updated prediction. So that's where I think the stock price will go. So I can invest in stock market based on this prediction that I have. But then, let's say I can invest in Daba, and then after 3 weeks, after 3 weeks, I'm here. So now after 3 weeks, I am here, and اللي شفت c'est que like the stock price went up. أنك عارف غادي يهبط ولكن شنو دار طلع. أنا مازال عارف غادي يهبط هنايا. So I still know بلي it will go down. So what's the best decision to make in this case? Yeah, I need to sell. Well, in the model that I've showed you now, they just tell you, okay, you don't update your prediction, you keep everything fixed. Well, like optimally, just by my intuition, I don't know, I should sell because so I should sell more. And then that's how I make money. But in the model, I go just keep that stuff fixed. Okay, so this is, let's just have some real life example. So let's July, experts قالوا بلي Apple stock will go up to $240 like in 1 year. And that was around like late July. So the stock price was around 200 at that time, right? So if you invest based on this, I'm going to maybe I should invest $1,000 in this Apple stock, right? But then what happened 1 week after that is that the stock went down. So for me, this is an opportunity. If the stock went down, my views are still unchanged, this is an opportunity to make money. So just buy more stocks. And then it will go up, and then you make more money. While the black litterman just says, keep everything fixed, don't change anything. Yeah, because we don't know how to update. Basically, we don't know how to update these predictions, and we don't know, as we move in time, market, we don't know how to use this and update what we think of the stock market, or like of our updates and see what we think of like our decision should be, basically. Okay, so now I'm just going to introduce basically our model and what we did in this work. Okay, so now this is the model I have, right? And basically what I want to do here is I want to use the past data. So I just use the past data to predict what's going to happen in 3 months. So I'm going to use the data to predict everything that's going to happen from here to 3 months. So I'm going to predict literally like I'm going to model like the price second by second. And so on. And even like like after 1 second, after 2 seconds, and so on. So I'm going to use that data to predict what's going to happen in this line here. And that's the first step that we will do. Okay, so I'm going to construct, let's say, a chain. In RT+1, RT+2, and so on. And then once I do, دابا عندي a network. So if I have a view wider, what I can do is, let's say, if I have a view in 3 months, then I'm going to go back using this chain and see what's going to happen, for example, tomorrow. And this is what we do here, as you said before, time series. So this is called Kalman-Smoothing equations. So basically, you just use future data to see how likely is it. So I'm just going to use the future, what's going to happen in the future, to see what's the most possible result tomorrow. And that's basically the intuition behind this. And then as I move in time, so let's say اليوم غادي نمشي غدا I will observe what's going to happen tomorrow in the stock market. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to repredict what's going to happen here, that chain, and then I'm going to see now how my view affects what's going to happen here. غادي نبقى نديرها. So on and so on and so on. Okay. Okay, let me just talk about this. So in the classical model, what we have is that we said the return is normally distributed. So the return عنده expectation of mu, and then has variance, how uncertain I am, of sigma. And now return. So the return, if I'm standing today at time t, the return I say at time, let's say in 3 months, will just be the price in 3 months minus the price today, divided by the price today. So if the price today is 100, and then basically let's say the price in 3 months is 120, then the return will be 20%. So this is what I mean by the return. So what are we going to do here? Is do the same thing. Instead of 3 months minus today, I'm gonna do like 1 second from now minus daba over daba. So I'm gonna literally just predict the return second by second. Okay, and that's what I mean by this DS1. So it's a very small change in the return between now and shwiya from now. And I'm gonna do the same. Here, I predict that it will be mu and sigma. Here, I just do the same. هذيك mu كنضربها في هذيك the very small amount of time that I have. All right, so let's say if my return, let's say, is 200, it's like 20% per year, then the return per day will be like 20% divided by 365. And that's what I'm doing here. And same thing for the variance. Okay. So here I'm going to use, so we just modeled this by what we call like the black shoes model. I think this is like one of the, when it comes to like assets pricing, like how do you price an asset, how do you price an option in finance, this is one of the most used models. And basically, I'm not going to go in details, but what are we saying is the same, is that my return, like in a very, very small amount of time, it has now, like the expectation now, I'll just call it drift. So I did that the mu I times dt. That's how much I expect my return, which is that. Mu I times this. And this is my noise. So this guy just represents this. Okay? I want to go into details, but I think we don't have much time. But just feel free to ask me about it later if you want. But all you need to know is that I just model my price like this. And this is something that we get from the data. So there are a lot of papers, we have a lot of work where we know if we have data, then how do we choose this mu, and how do we choose this, like the variance of this TW. So we know how to do this from the data. And that's basically like, that's my prediction. That's the chain that I predict from now until like 3 months from now. So I am going to skip this, but just ask me about it later if you want. I'm gonna talk about one term, basically, which is this one here, the noise term. I think this is important for later. So this we call a Brownian motion. So you can think of it as a noise, variable aléatoire, but then it's variable aléatoire اللي كتحرك في الوقت. Let me just explain what I mean. Okay. Let's say we play this game. Okay. I have a coin. If I flip, I keep flipping a coin. If I flip head, كنمشي على اليمين. عندي let's say plus x. If I flip tail, كنمشي على اليسار. عندي minus x. هذاك البال اللي كندير, it depends. I just do it randomly. Sometimes I go a little bit. Sometimes I go very, like كنمشي بزاف. Sometimes كنمشي على اليسار بزاف and so on. Okay. So let's say at time 0, وكل دقيقة I flip the coin. So let's say now I flip the coin, it's head, so كنمشي على اليمين. كندير a big step. So now that's why my Brownian motion went up. Then I flip the coin again, دابا كنمشي على اليسار, small step. So it went down. And I keep doing this, let's say in 10 minutes, I do this 10 times. If I do it 10 times, then basically this is the graph that you see. It depends. If I repeat it, you see something different. But let's say this is the graph that you see. You see something like this. So now imagine instead, and then you flip like the coin every minute. Now I flip it every 6 seconds. So you see something like this. So every 6 seconds I flip the coin. If it's head, كمشي اليمين. If it's tail, كمشي اليسار. So you see something like this. So now imagine if I do this مش كل 6 seconds, like كل millisecond or even less. I keep doing it a lot. Then you will see something like this, right? And that's basically اللي كتشوفه في stock price. Like whenever you say stock price, you always have that noise اللي كيمشي بحال هكا. So that noise, like every millisecond, stock إما كيهبط لتحت إما كيطلع لفوق. And then it's very random. It's something that we cannot explain given the data that we have. So that's why you model it as a Brownian motion. It's something that moves a lot every millisecond or even less, and something that we cannot explain using data. So it's very, very, very random. So if that coin flip, let's say I'm very, very fast. So I do the coin flip like very fast, and then I have this graph. So if I repeat another time, so إلا درت هاد المرة طلع لي هاد الجراف. If I do it next time, then I'll have another graph, right? I don't have the same path. So المرة let's say في الأول كان عندي هاد، المرة الثانية في الأول يولي عندي الثالث. So غنمشي على اليسار والأول and so on. So every time I'll have a different graph. But what's nice about the Brownian motion, so if I show all the graph, so let's say this is the same tail and we do it 100 times. Like now the مرة. It's the same Brownian motion. I'm playing the same game, the same coin. But every time I have a different path. But what's nice about this is that it has some really nice probabilistic properties. First, if I go, let's say, at time 6, then this is normally distributed. So كنلقاو واحد لوا نورمال. كنلقاو واحد لوا نورمال, and then my expectation of this Brownian motion, I expect it to be 0. هذه ما كتعنيش انها ديما غتكون 0. ولكن if I do it a lot of times, so شي مرة تهبط لي لتحت, شي مرة غتطلع لي الفوق and so on. But إلا جمعت like la moyenne غتكون 0. Yeah, l'espérance 0. And then, but the variance كتكبر par rapport the time. So let's say, so the variance basically هو شحال how wide this is. This is the variance. هذيك كتكبر like في الوقت. So basically إلا كنت هنا تكون عندي الفاريانس بحال هكا, ولكن إلا زدت شوية قدام then the variance will be bigger. My expectation is still zero, but the variance is bigger. And what this means basically, إلا كنت أنا واقف let's say time 0, and let's say I have a stock price كما قلت لكم it's a black shoes, so فيها the Brownian motion. So basically 6 months from now, my variance, that's how unsure I am about the stocks. ولكن إلا شفت 9 months from now, then I'm even more unsure. ما عرفتش شنو غيوقع par rapport 6 months. And that's what we mean by a Brownian motion. So I just model my stock price like that. Yeah, I just model my stock price like that. And now I create this chain, right? Let me just talk about this. Oh, there is one important thing here. So for the classical model, خدمنا بالreturn niche. Return like the price in 3 months minus the price today divided by the price today. Using this black shoes, I'm not going to use the return because they're not normally distributed, so it's very hard to do those time series. But I'm going to do like the log of the return, which has a normal distribution. So it's the same thing. So if my x, so then plus نشوف return, we just apply the logarithm, and then نشوف log the return. And the reason we do this, it's because it has some nice properties. The same for the expert view. So في الأول expert كان يعطيني view على return. ده بنفس الحاجه like experts الى جا عطاني view the return غندير لها log غتولي view على log return, and that's all we do. So we just assume بلي دابا views are about the log return. So this is just like some technicalities just to make things Gaussian and very, very easy to deal with mathematically. Yeah. So now I just have a graph of x's. So x is the log return, but you can just think of it as the return. I know the return is stock. Okay. So now this is basically how this one evolves. Plus mu, I just did a mu x. So this is like the drift or like the expectation of the log return. Okay. So this is how it moves. I know in a very small amount dt, my stock غادي يطلع by mu x, and then I have that very small noise اللي كيتزاد. So نعرفو كيطلع mu x in a very small amount dt, but then let's say كيطلع mu x, and then someone flips a coin. If it's head, the stock يمشي شويه الفوق. If it's tail, كيهبط شويه لتحت. And that's what it means. Yeah. الانتجرال like اذا درتي انتجرال ديال هذه لا اذا درتي انتجرال دي دبليو تكون هي دبليو تي. هي دابا دي دبليو هي شحال كتحرك في small amount of time. ولكن الانتجرال هو هو الطون كامل تشوف الباس كامل. الانتجرال لا الا شفتي ليسبيرونس زيرو. ولكن المهم على حسب لوا نورمال ليسبيرونس بارابور لوا نورمال تكون زيرو ولكن هادشي غير الانتيغرال ديال دي دبليو دبليو حيت الانتيغرال بحال قلتي 1 فليب كوين كنفليبي مره واحده ديريفاتيف 1 فليب كوين كنفليبي مره واحده عندي كنتحرك هذوك ديك الديريفي اما الا درتي انتيغرال دونك عطيك الباس كامل ولكن نورمالمون ماشي زيرو حتى هي ولكن الانتيغرال ديالها ما عارفينش حتى هو فاريابل الياتوار اتس راندوم فاريبل حتى الانتيغرال كل مره كيكون فالور اوكي so now I just اللي كندير دابا انني غادي نشوف how this log return evolves الى دخلت الفيوز so before the views كنت عارف قبل الاكسبرت فيوز I knew باللي my stock I look at the data قلت stock هيطلع mu x that's what I expect and then there is some noise now كنشوف الفيوز كنشوف كيفاش الفيوز غادي ياثروا على الستوك ديالي so this is the very small change in returns هذه بقايا هي from the data so from the data كنت عارف انه غادي يطلع mu x مازال هي and then what happens is that I have some sort of regression first I have you can think of it as a regression ولكن بحال قلتي كنشوف the views if the views كانوا طالعين then I just my drift هو غيطلع so احنا نقول like if the views are very high then حتى my expectation غتطلع of what's going to happen to the stock and then هادشي اللي قلنا قبيله لان every time شنو كندير let's say دخلت الفيوز دابا شنو كنبقى شويه داز السيمانه what I'm going to see is I'm going to look at the stock price شحال دابا الا كان طالع I'm going to adjust my predictions so this is what this guy here does I'm going to explain this later working like high this is what we do and then again we have a noise which is حتى هو Brownian motion نفس لا لوا غير it's not the same Brownian motion okay so اللي قلنا قبل في finance c'est que what I want to do is first I predict what's going to happen to the market and once I have a prediction I make a decision can invest so this is all we need this is the prediction we have so this I'll explain it later but this is basically like the prediction of what's going to happen to the log return so what's going to happen to the stock من هنا لقدام this is my prediction I'm going to explain it later so now I can make a decision but just before this I just want to talk about this guy more so the next 10 slides are just trying to explain what really happens here شنو كنشوفوا هنا and then we move to making decisions and how to invest using this so now let me explain this and I think اسهل حاجه فنفاي لك هذا like in multi dimensions so هنا عندي n stocks عندي a lot of views so what happens الا كان عندي غير ستوك واحد وفيو واحد yeah. so now we're going to see so هذا basically I have n stocks and I have a number of views and then I combine them so دابا غنشوفوا شنو وقع الا كان عندي غير ستوك واحد so عندي ستوك واحد and then عندي غير فيو واحده وكيف هذاك الفيو كتاثر على الستوك okay again عندي one asset so one stock اللي بغيت نانفستي فيه عندي one view so I just decide هنا شحال نحط في الستوك ولا ما نحطش في الستوك نحط في البنك that's هادشي اللي okay so, and this is my prediction using like one dimension so what happens is this so from the data and I get باللي stock price هيطلع بحال هكا or the log return or you can think of it the same the log return غيطلع بحال هكا يطلع واحد شويه this is from the data okay that's my initial model so the line اللي كتشوف هنا بالصفر هي mu x times c so that's my expectation what I expect the log return but this is basically what happened so this is something اللي انا ما كنشوفهاش this is like the future ما كنشوفوش but my experts again so كيشوفوا واحد noisy perturbation وكيعطيني واحد النقطه right and then هادشي الاكسبرت كيعطيوني so then كنزيد ديك النقطه if one كنزيد ديك الاكسبرت view what happens this is my new prediction so you can think of it as a jump الا كنت انا واقف هنايا كان كيسحب لي بلي ستوك غيكون let's say 0.4 log return in 3 months جا الاكسبرت قال لي لا راه غتكون واحد so I'm gonna do is now I'm gonna adjust my prediction right هادشي اللي وقع so my expectation what I expected the log return to be طلعت so just jump and this is what this guy here does and you can see the mu x times t basically هي هاد لا لين هي هاد النقطه هادي so if my view كانت هنايا right هذا غادي يكون نيجاتيف so هاد الخط الزرق غادي يكون تحت من الخط الصفر الا my view كانت فوق من هنايا هذا غادي يكون بوزيتيف دونك هذا الخط الزرق غادي يكون كبر من هذا. I mean it's just very like just common sense. الا كان كيسحب لي بلي ستوك برايس غادي يكون 0.4 من 3 شهور اكسبيرت قال لي شي اقل من 0.4 دونك انا الاكسبكتيشن ديالي غتهبط. الا قال لي شي حاجه اكثر من 0.4 اكسبكتيشن ديالي غتطلع. So this is what you have, and let me look here, and then I have this. So this is what we call finance. This is like a mean reverse process. So هنا can compare x of t. So can compare like let's say log return or the asset. شنو الاسيت شنو دار par rapport what I expected him to do. هذه اللي كنكتب بها غدير ولكن ملي كنشوف الفالور ديالك تلقاه هنايا. Right? So what happens is this. Let's say أنا واقف هنايا. This is what I expect the asset to be, right? ولكن شنو وقع لقيته الفوق. So هنايا what I expect him شنو غيدير؟ Like logically شنو غيدير؟ إلا أنا I expect you to be here because I have a view that you will arrive here من بعد ولكن ترى الفوق. So now I expect you to go down, right? So داكشي عندنا هاد الناقص هنايا. So إلا كان x of t أكثر من expectation ديالو بحال غندفعو لتحت غادي يدفع لتحت. إلا كان لتحت غيكون إلا كان هنا I would expect him to go up. هذه عقلوا عليها مهمه باسكو دان كتجي في انفستمنت كيفاش كنانفستي الا كان عندي بحال التيرم في البريدكشن ديالي. دابا غندوي على هاد لي كوفيسيون هادو. اوكي سو دابا كندوي على الكوفيسيون. سو نورمالمون الفيو امتى عطيناها في تايم تي. سو ليتس سي 8 لايك اكسبيرت جا عطاني فيو في 8 ولكن لقينا ان هاد السلوب باش الفيو كتطلع ماشي 1 اوفر تي بكوز هي لوجيك ولا شي واحد عطاك ليتس سي قال لك شي واحد غتكون 20% اكثر من هنا 8 شهور دين بيزيكلي هاد ستوب خاص يكون 1 على 8 كل شهر غتطلع 20 على 8 ياك هذه لوجيك ولكن هنا ماشي هادشي اللي كيوقع لقينا بلي تي كيطلع ماشي 1 اوفر تي ولكن 1 اوفر تي تيلدا وعندي هاد تي تيلدا هنايا وهاد تي تيلدا هنايا كبر من تي. غنشرح لكم التي تيلدا زعما كيفاش كاينه. اوكي وقينا بلي التيلدا شنو الفرق بين هاد التايم اللي الاكسبرت عطاني فيه الفيو والامباكت ديال الفيو. هذا بحال قلتي الاكشوال الامباكت ديال الفيو امتى كاين امباكت ديال الفيو هو اوميغا سكوير. اوميغا سكوير هي الفاريانس ديال الفيو. دونك اللي كوقع هنايا بحال قلتي الاكسبرت هي جيفز مي فيو ات تايم تي ولكن ذا اكشوال امباكت اوف ذا فيو هو تي تيلدا. دابا الى عطاني لايك الفيو without any noise الا كانت اوميغا زيرو دونك الامباكت غيكون هو تي. ولا عطاني الفيو ليتس سي نويز لايك نويز انفينيتي دينا تي تيلدا مشات لانفين بحال ما وقع والو. دونك هادو غادي يمشيو للزيرو ويبقى عندي البراير ديالي زعما داكشي اللي درت من الداتا. دونك دابا غنشرح why we have this like why this happens. Yeah, one last important thing. So this is what we call for those like doing like stochastic stuff. This is like stochastic differential equation. So هذيك نحسبوا بها like الباس ديال log return. So شنو كيوقع الا حسبنا هذا الباس let's say واخا the view expires here ولكن الا قلت what's going to happen to this term الا مشيت لتي تيلدا كنلقاو بلي log return is equal to y at time t tilde. No, yeah. Okay. So شنو كنلقاو ان الاكسبرت قال لي بلي log return غادي يكون y في تايم تي ولكن لقيت بلي غيكون y ماشي في تايم تي غيكون في واحد التايم اللي من بعد تي. والفرق بين هذوك التايمز هو النويز ان ذا فيو. سو الا ما كانش نويز غنلقى داكشي الاكسبرت اللي قال لي. الا كان نويز بحال قلتي ذا هيتين تايم امتى كنوصل الفيو كيدفع. So دابا I will explain why this happens. And this is like for me this is like the most important thing in the paper. But okay, as I said, this is like an SDE, it's like stochastic differential equation. So in one dimension, this is something هذه بحال ايكواسيون ديفيرونسيال هي بالفاريبل الياتوار. So in one dimension, this is something that I can solve. It can be solved and basically it equals something like this. Let me just when we solve this equation, what we call a Brownian bridge. Brownian bridge from 0 to y with a heating time t tilde. Let me explain what's now a Brownian bridge. So إذا قلت قبل قلت لكم what is the Brownian motion. Brownian motion شي حاجة اللي كتتحرك في الوقت sometimes كتطلع لفوق sometimes كتطلع لتحت. We cannot predict what's going to happen. We just know باللي we expect it to be zero. إذا عاودت الاكسبيرينس بزاف المرات غتكون زيرو. like الافريج لا موين غتكون زيرو. ولكن عنده واحد الفاريانس. So the Brownian bridge basically شنو هو؟ هو واحد البراونيان موشن اللي انا عارفه فين غتبدا. نقول تبدا من زيرو ديما كنقول تبدا من زيرو نورمالمون ولكن دابا عارفه فين غتسالي. So it's a Brownian motion, it's a noise, right? كنقول لهم فين غادي يبدا كنقول لهم فين غادي يسالي. تعرفوا ديك اللعبه اللي قلت لكم ديال الكوين فليب right? let's say انا غادي نبدا من تما وعارفيني بحال قلتي في الاخر النهار خاصني نخرج من ذاك الباب ولكن بيناتهم غنبقى نفليب الكوين ونتحرك كما بغيت ولكن you know بلي غندخل من ذاك الباب وغنخرج من ذاك الباب. and this is a Brownian bridge. So I know فين غادي يبدا I know فين غادي يسالي ولكن I know nothing in between. I just know aléatoire. And this is what we call Brownian bridge. وهذه شي حاجه اللي كنا زعما اللي كنديروها في literature. So if in finance هذه كيديروها في pricing of derivatives ولا insider trading. So عندك شي واحد on the inside and he knows what's going to happen for sure. كنعرف الستوك for sure it's going to be let's say غيطلع ب 20% من الشهر ولكن he's very very sure وغادي توقع. So that's a Brownian bridge because I know stock دابا شحال I know من هنا الشهر شحال غادي يولي ولكن I don't know what's in between. So we just model it as a Brownian bridge. We also do it like in ecology. So let's say عندك some birds migration. You know the bird غادي يبدا let's say من South Africa ومن هنا شهرين خاصو يكون في Spain. So you know فين غادي يبدا زعما المايغريشن ديالو and you know فين غادي يسالي ولكن in between you don't know من شنو الطريق اللي غادي ياخذ. So that's where we use the Brownian bridge. ولكن what's going to happen اللي وقع لنا هنا c'est que we don't know فين ستوك غادي يسالي. That's not something that we know. Alright? We just know بلي داك ستوك at time 8 غادي يكون شي بلاصه هنا. هادشي اللي الاكسبرت قال لي ولكن still we had a Brownian bridge. و the Brownian bridge عندي انا ما سالاش في التايم اللي قال لي الاكسبرت بحال قلتي التايم دفع من بعد بحال قلتي ديك النويز اللي كان هنايا ولا هنايا دونك تدفع من بعد. And this is like one of the most important results of the paper is that you can بينو c'est que if I give you a Brownian motion so this is هذه Brownian motion قلت لك غتبدا at time 0 غتبدا في الزيرو ولكن let's say at time t عطيتك واحد الفيو واحد النويزي فيو واحد البوان then that Brownian motion كتولي Brownian bridge. تولي Brownian bridge كتسالي let's say في ديك واي في ديك البوان عطيتك والفرق داكشي اللي قلنا قبل الفرق between t وهذاك الهيتين تايم new heating time ديال Brownian bridge هو النويز عندك في الفيو. So what does this mean in terms of decision making? When I make a decision what does شنو كيعني هادشي؟ Let's have an example. Let's say نتوما كاملين هنا I will give you the same data about one stock and then we all want to invest in one stock. So I give you the data. So basically we all have the same expectation. That's what we expect the stock to be. And this is something اللي ما كنشوفوهاش. That's the actual realization of the stock price. So it is something that we don't see. All right? But let's say if I come here, give me 1 second. Okay, so from the data we all have this model, right? And the investment horizon, so كاملين بغينا ننفستيو دابا, right? And then ناخذ فلوس من هنا 8 شهور. Okay? Okay. So غادي نقسموا deux groupes. Let's say everyone from here lesser, I will give you one information. So I give you the same data and everyone هنا في the classroom you have the same model. عندكم like I don't know regression هذا عندكم the same model. ولكن دابا صوروني بحال شي اكسبير ولكن دابا اللي على اليسار نعطيكم واحد الانفورميشن غنقول لكم شنو غادي يوقع من هنا ل 8 شهور ولكن with some noise واحد النويز اللي سكوير روت اوف 2 فانتوما نعطيكم واحد شنو غيوقع من هنا الشهر with some noise نقول لكم ما متاكدش ولكن من هنا 8 شهور يقدر يكون باغ اكزومبل equal to 1 اللونغيتود غادي يكون واحد ياك وغادي ندير الجروب اللي على اليمين واللي غندير سكو الجروب اللي على اليمين اوكي غادي نعطيكم ماشي داكشي اللي وقع من هنا ل 8 شهور نقول لكم من هنا 10 شهور دونك نتوما نقول لكم من هنا 10 شهور غيكون كيساوي واحد ولكن without اي نويز انا متاكد بزاف غادي يكون واحد متاكد 100% رايت ولكن حنا شنو باغيين بجوج بغينا ناخذ ديسيزيون على قبل باش نانفيستيو في 8 شهور نو الأذان وقال اوكي دونك فين كنا؟ اوكي سو الجروب اللي على اليسار كامل عندنا نفس الداتا، عندنا نفس الموديل. الجروب اللي على اليسار غنعطيه واحد دونك الجروب اللي على اليسار غنعطيه هاد الانفورميشن، غادي نعطيكم الفيو وذ سم نويز هنايا. الجروب اللي على اليمين غنعطيكم الفيو without any noise، ولكن ماشي في الوقت اللي بغينا، غنعطي لكم من بعد in 10 months. and what's gonna happen باللي ملي غتبغيو تبريديكتيو شنو غادي يوقع في الستوك ماركت، بجوج فيكم غيكون عندكم نفس الموديل، واخا very different information ولكن بجوجكم نفس الموديل and you're both gonna make the same decision. And that's basically what's happening here. Okay, so this is for 1D. So دابا كنسول السؤال الا كان عندي ماشي غير one asset، عندي like n assets and عندي k views. Do we have those Brownian bridges? Right? So اللي كيوقع هنايا سي كما قلت قبل we have some views about an asset ولكن we have some views اللي ماشي عن asset like about some asset that's correlated to it. So we have two types of views. شي حاجه اللي view directly about the asset ولكن for example قبيله like we had view about assets B and C ولكن يقدروا يكونوا correlated ل asset A. So how does that correlation impact the view? So for example let's say هنا عندي Apple and Microsoft and you can see this is like real data داك العام اللي فات and you can see بلي they're correlated. So إذا كنت انت واقف هنايا and if I tell you بلي Microsoft will be this in 1 year, then you can guess what's Apple gonna be, you know? You have to view par rapport à one stock, you can guess what's gonna happen to the other stock. So we have some correlation. And now we want to know which the Brownian bridge appears when we have correlation. Because if that's the case, it means we can do it for the multi-asset case. Okay, so I'm going to go through this like a bit quickly. Okay, what's happened is this. Okay, what we showed basically, let's say you have two assets correlated. احنا كاملين بغينا انفستيو في الاسيت اللي بالخضر. Right? But then we only have information about this asset هنايا اللي بالزرق. What's going to happen is that if I give you information about this asset هنايا, it's the same as if I give you the information about the green asset ولكن further in time. It just means بلي عطيتك انفورماسيون بارابور هنايا واخا هذا is unrelated هو correlated ما عندنا نيش انفورماسيون we just have the correlation but we can construct a Brownian bridge غوا الوقت كيدفع اكثر بزاف. So for me this was just for fun, just to show بلي what we saw before هذيك equations اللي شفنا قبل it was indeed Brownian bridges. And we show the same بلي for the log return you have n stocks, then I can write the log return. Let's say from my data I write my log return, I know the drift but this is a Brownian motion. But then when I add the view then my log return كيبقى the same drift ولكن بلاص Brownian motion كتولي واحد sum ديال Brownian bridges. Some Brownian bridges حيت عندنا عندنا some views about the stock itself, some Brownian bridges باسكو عندنا some views about the stock اللي correlatedly and so on. Yeah, and the Brownian motion take تولي a sum of Brownian bridges هذه في multi dimension. Okay. So دابا we come to investment. كيفاش كنinvestيو في الماركت؟ Again, اللي قلت لكم قبل سكو this is my log return process. Right? I have هذه من data, this is the view. هنايا I keep checking what's today's like log return, what's today's price, and then I keep adjusting. And this is my noise. So from this we can derive the price. كما قلت لكم like log return is just like the log of the price, the log of like the price at time t over the price at time 0 ملي كنبدا. So I can derive the price. We find بلي the price عنده واحد drift. So نفس الحاجة نفس الدريفت هذا تقريبا هو الدريفت ديال هذا. price سوا عنده واحد الاكسبكتيشن وعنده واحد النويز نفس النويز. And then we ask ourselves what is the optimal investment strategy in this case. Okay. So نمشيو classical model. Classical model, let's say هذا block choose without any views. The classical model I have this log return, I have this price. تقريبا بحال الفرق بيناتهم سي كو هنايا the price ميو هذه من data so it was constant. The new view ملي I introduce like the views كما قلت the impact of the views on the assets it depends on time and the impact and every time I need to check what's happening today in the market and then adjust what I believe is going to happen in the future. Okay, but in this case of models كما قلت لكم قبيله سي كو the optimal investment strategy كتكون mean variance اللي شفنا في السلايدز الاولين كناخذ الاسيتس اللي عندهم the highest mean and the lowest variance. So بغيت شي asset اللي يكونوا عارفهم كيطلعوا ولكن I'm very sure بلي غادي يطلعوا. That's what I do. So هنا كنسولوا راسنا واش حتى في الكيس ديالنا كنديروا نفس الحاجه. In this case is the optimal strategy حتى هي mean variance. And the answer is, I mean, I'll let you guess it, but let me just give some intuition. So basically what we had before from the log return كما قلت, so if my log return is up, دي بحال قلتي like if the price of the assets كان طالع بزاف par rapport l'expectation, I expect it to go down. So it's somehow like I see in the future and I know if the stock price will go down or go up. So I can know if I invest today, will it likely go up or will it likely go down? And then I need to use this to adjust my position. And that's basically what we find. So we find that the optimal investment strategy هي كتكون mean variance. Yes, I still select هذوك assets اللي عندهم the highest mean and the lowest variance. But then I also have like some hedging that happen. And what I mean by hedging, so this guy, what he does is like, if I'm here, then this one will be negative. يقول لي like investi قل ولا you short the stock, بيع stock. If I am here, then this guy هنايا will be positive. And غادي يقول لي اوكي خاصك تشري اكثر باسكو الستوك غادي يطلع. Like we predict بلي الستوك غادي يطلع اكثر. So خاصك تشري اكثر. And this is basically what we find حتى في optimal investment strategy. So now let me talk about how much money this makes us. If I do this زعما شي قد دابا بارابور اللي like classical black leaderman ولا الا ما درتش expert views at all شنو هو الفرق بيناتهم. So هنايا I will compare three types of policies. So I'm an investor and I can do three policies. MV, this is for Markovich. هذا شي واحد اللي he just uses data. كيدير like عنده data, he does like some machine learning and then he has a prediction model. This is what I mean by MV. Classical black leaderman. So this is the one اللي شفنا في السلايدز الاولين. So this one كيدخل الفيوز ولكن he keeps them fixed. No, like ما كيبقاش يبدل الديسيزيون ديالو مع الوقت. كياخذ ديسيزيون في الاول and then he never adjusts. And this is the model that developed by Goldman Sachs. And this is الموديل اللي درنا حنايا. Like the multi-period black leaderman. This is like اللي دوش عليه في الاخر. And now I compare like the investment policies. So let's look at the MV. Like the guy that doesn't introduce, let's say, this guy ما كيستعملش expert views غير الداتا. Okay? So this is his model. هذه لك expectation. What he expects the model to be. So he expects the stock to go down. So شنو غايدير؟ السوق غادي يشورت ستوك ولكن هنا ما كينفستيش. دونك ما غاديش يشري ستوك. alright. Okay. The CBL. So this guy هنا عندنا واحد فيو مزيانه. So this guy he sees عنده like some kind of better prediction because he has expert views. So في بلاص ما يسحب الستوك غادي يهبط he knows بلي الستوك غادي يطلع. So شنو كيدير؟ Like he invests هنا 90% of his money in this stock. Since you know غادي يطلع حتى like uncertainty ديالو هبطات. Okay. And this is our guy هنا. So this is our investment strategy. So what our guy does, let's say at time zero شنو عندنا؟ We only see the view and we have the same model as the classical black leaderman, yeah? Because we only see the view and we don't see any realizations. So كنبداو في نفس النقطة. But what happens هنايا? What we see, we expected the stock to go up, ولكن الستوك شنو دار؟ هبط. So إذا الستوك هبط كما قلت لك قبيله شنو خاصنا نديرو؟ I have the hedging strategy. ما كنديرش mean variance، كندير mean variance plus كنهدجي. So إذا الستوك هبط أنا كنانفيستي كثر. دونك غنشري كثر ديال الستوك. هنايا باغ اكزومبل هنا الستوك طلع. انا ستوك هو الميديا ستوك هو ستوك. دونك انا هناك انا عارف بلي الستوك غادي يهبط. دونك شنو كندير؟ I short ستوك كنانفيستي قل. كنبيع ستوك ولا كنانفيستي قل. And so on. So that's what we do. So now let's see this in terms of money. Okay. So هنا I compare two things. The average of gains and the certainty equivalent. The average of gains is that if I repeat هذاك الانفستيسمون بزاف المرات شحال ديال الفلوس او موين شحال ديال الفلوس غادي نربح. The certainty equivalent this takes care this like includes حتى the risk that I take. So basically let's say غادي انفستي جوج مرات. The first time I will gain $1,000, second time I will lose $1,000. So هنا the average is 0. Okay, let's say the other time غادي نفيستي جوج مرات. First time I will gain 100 plus 1000 I will gain let's say $50. ولكن second time I will lose $50. So هنا the same average ولكن not the same risk. Okay, so it can be the same average ولكن this one includes like the average ولكن حتى الريسك. So هذا كيكون طالع إلا كان average طالع والريسك هابط. And so on. Okay, so we compare the three policies. MV, this is the guy اللي ما كيدخلش expert views. In this case, I mean all the simulations that we've done with different data, ديما كنلقاو باللي he gets way less than the other ones اللي عندهم expert views. Right? هنايا for example في classical black Richerman and multi-period black Richerman بجوجهم عندهم the same, I mean, and this is as a function of noise. So this is like the noise in the views, right? So هنايا like increased noise in the views. واحد الحاجه ما قلتهاش سي كو حتى ملي يكون النويز طالع بزاف مازال زعما الانفستر اللي ما كيشوفش الاكسبرت فيوز he still gains way less than the ones اللي كيشوف الاكسبرت فيوز. Okay, so عشان when I compare the classical black Richerman, so the guy اللي كيشوف expert views ولكن كيدير one decision and the guy that hedges. So on average في الأول the guy who hedges كيكون like he gains more ولكن as we have more uncertainty in the view بجوجهم كيوليو بحال تقريبا. On average كيوليو بحال ولكن when I look at the certainty equivalent ماشي بحال because even though they have the same average gains ولكن the guy who will hedge he have a higher certainty equivalent. It means that he takes less risk. He takes less risk because every time كيشوف شنو غادي يوقع في stock market he sees if it will likely go down or go up and then he hedges his stock. إما كيكثر إما كيشري قل. And what this does basically is that it just reduces the variance of the overall portfolio. So كتولي كتنفيستي واحد البورتفوليو اللي عنده uncertainty قل since you have this hedging strategy. Yeah. And I think that's all. شكرا بزاف حيت سمعتوا لينا وسمحوا لينا على هذا القطاع كامل. إلا كانوا شي أسئلة like any questions.
Thank you, Anas, for this quite insightful presentation. So, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Yes.
دابا قلت شي اكزومبل على حنا كنعرفوا واش بزاف واش ما كنعرفوش
ابراهيم
دابا هذا البروبليم ديال فاش تلقى انت السيد كتخرج تخرج حتى واحد ما تعرف حيت تقدر الا دخلتي تموت تقدر تقدر تشوف فيها دونك شنو هي الحاجه اللي غتكون لا فونكسيون سي بلان ديال القلب يعني عرفت شي حاجه انت غتزيد باش تبدا شي حاجه جديده
زعما الفكره اننا ما كنعرفوش شنو غادي يوقع من بعد ولكن هذه دابا كانت بحال هكا
حنا ما عرفوش نقعدوا تبداو مع شي غتسالي حيت الا عرفتي غتسالي حاجه غتبقى نموت انا دابا غنموت غنتبرع على سميتو ولا غندير شي حاجه
لا بصح لا في هذا ليكزومبل ديال الموت هذا ماشي براونين بريدج هذا براونين موت كنعرف ولكن
واحد الحاجه ليسبيرونس دو في كاين اللي يقول لك لا سيغونس يقول لك هذا يموت يعيش 60 عام 70 عام ويقدر يعيش 200 عام دونك ما مستلزمين خاصنا نقولوا كل دابا
ولكن دابا لاسيغونس اتس ا فيري ديفرنت بروبليم حيت انت راه كتقول يو اكسبكت انه غادي يعيش 70 عام ولكن ديما يو تيك انتو اكونت واحد فاريونس ولا حتى لكن انت غلط اباوت ذا اكسبكتيشن كتقول انا كنظن انه غادي يعيش 70 عام ولكن ملي كندير الموديل ديالي في لاسيغونس هو مبدل على هذا بزاف ولكن كناخذ اون كونسيديراسيون هذوك انا نكون غلط about like the probability distribution اللي حطيت وكاين that's more about optimization انا اوبتيميزي ولكن الا كنت غلط دونك نحاول نشوف like worst case scenario انني for example غندير اسيغونس ولكن I don't know like غندير اسيغونس انه غادي يعيش 90 عام 100 عام دونك نحاول ديما نزيد فيه شويه and so on yeah. like they're based on زعما ان the experts عطانا فيو مزيانه. لا نشوف هنا. ولكن هنايا شنو درت سكو دابا هنا في الاكس اكسس this is the noise in the expert views. So par exemple هنايا noise in the expert views طالع بزاف. like المهم زعما في هادو اللي كبار فريمون الاكسبيرت ماشي ما عطاناش شي حاجه ولكن عطانا واحد prediction ولكن with a very very high noise. like هاد السيمولاسيون نورمالمون درنا باغ اكزومبل كل ما دي سيمولاسيون كنجينيري واحد 2000 اكسبيرت فيوز وكنشوف الافريج. لا في هاد ليزيكزومبل كاملين كان عندي جو بونس درتهم like I had like 5 assets وغير 3 ديال الفيوز. like one expert عندي 3 ديال الفيوز so I had كاع ما كان عندي الفيوز بزاف وكان عندي هنايا النويز بزاف في الفيوز and still ملي كتشوف الافريج جينز مازال like investor اللي ما كي that doesn't like have those expert views he performs way less. وزعما وجربت انني نبقى هاد النويز نطلعو فريمون كبير بزاف وعمرهم كتلاقاو. الموديل اللي لا دونك هذا ديما كونستون هذا it doesn't do yeah. Like how to model the trust of the experts. هنا كاين like yeah there is there's a very big field of this like the research I think the like the wisdom of the crowds, right? And basically I've seen some papers ولكن شنو كيديروا حتى you have a lot of data so the experts فلو ما كتكونش عارف how good he is, right? ولكن then he gives you a lot of recommendations and every time كتقيد the recommendations and you see what happened in the market and then you build that covariance. So كل مرة كيغلط like you penalize him so you add the covariance كتكبر كل مرة كيجيب صحيح the covariance كتصغر and you keep estimating that covariance. ولكن هنايا like I mean in this paper we just say بلي the covariance is given so we don't كنقولوا we have the covariance but there are a lot of papers if you want like about like, the wisdom of crowds and stuff اللي كي فريمون كيشوفوا كيفاش you can build that covariance كيفاش like how much شنو the uncertainty of your experts كيفاش كتكالكولها. I think okay I think in our model you can, right? In our model you can like in the classical block determinant because like في model classic اللي كنت درت في الاول they say بلي you need a backward equilibrium model زعما model like just based on past data and stuff. Okay, I'm thinking in our model you can do it. I don't think it would change a lot like if you mu زعما it doesn't change any of the results. Like and then you have some you just need to be like when you estimate the covariance دابا عندك a correlation between basically your prediction and the expert's prediction. Yeah, so that one then you need to estimate the omega in a good way. So you need to change your omega. Yeah, since دابا it's somehow عندكم واحد les points similaires. It depends on the country. And like زعما هنا في الموديل ولا on general. On general, it depends on the country. Like أنا في سنغافورة ما كاينش tax على les investissements. تنفستي لي في stock and then you get your money. But I know in some countries in Europe you pay 30%, 40% على الأرباح ديالك. ماشي اللي اخترت زعما الأرباح ديالك. لا الصراحة ما عرفتش.
experts تاعهم les experts تاعهم باش تكون expertise خصوها الناس يفهموا الطون هذاك الطون باغ دي زانيز ماشي اللي كومبلومون
بصح لا فهمتك ان ديسك زعما ولكن هذه الصراحه كتجيك قد ديما تدخلها في هذيك في لايك اوميغا هذيك ماتريس اوميغا اللي عندك زعما تقد باسكو الا كبرتي الفاريونس ديالو بزاف ما كتثقش فيه دير حتى الموديل ديالك ما غاديش يعاود هذاك الاكسبيرت بزاف دونك الفيو ديالو كنحط البوان اللي قليل بزاف لا زيرو
دونك الكريتير باش تاخذ شي اكسبير يكون مزيان واش لاج ولا
نورمالمون في بيبرز اللي شفت سكو زعما كيحاولوا يشوفوا what they do زعما كيشوفوا زعما داك الاكسبيرت داكشي اللي قال قبل واش صحيح ولا لا and then they build that covariance وزعما وكتشوف redundancy كاين شي واحد غير كيعاود داكشي كيقولوا الاخرين and then you can detect that expert وكتحيدوا من الماتريس ديالك ولكن هنايا like we just assume بلي we have omega زعما حتى الاس ام بي 500 ما كتزادش زعما it depends على حسب الوقت بحال دابا جو بونس هذا العام كاين انفيديا جو بونس تزاد شي 4 مرات من العام اللي فات لهذا العام كانت $250 دابا شي 900 ولا شي حاجه دولار اوكي من عطيت البريزونطاسيون ديالي العام اللي فات في انيوز كنت درت اكزومبل ديال انفيديا وكانت 250 كانوا الاكسبرت يقولوا طلع 500 ولكن ما تيقصوش بزاف ولكن الصراحه ما كانش بريديكشن 1000 ولكن كانوا شادين كيقولوا بلي الاي اي وكاين بزاف ديال ال ام سيرتو مع الشات جي بي تي وداك الشيء كان بزاف ديال
اي اي اكسبونسيف
داك الشيء ومع انفيدا كدير لك دوز تشيبس دونك داك الشيء علاش زادت الفالور ديالها ولكن ما كاينش زعما اللي قال 1000 جو بونس صعيبه بزاف
كومباني راه بغى يدير مع فيسبوك ما صحابش
صراحه دونك صعيب هما اكسبير زعما ماشي ديما كتجيبوا راسخه ولكن او موان لايك بيكوز الا شتي الظهر ديالك ديال انفيديا 20 عام الاخر يو كانت بريديكت بلي انفيديا غتطلع حتى ل 1000 دونك خاصك تشوف بزاف شنو واقع في الاي اي شنو واقع هنا and then هي ما كتابديتيش بصح مني كنا بدينا البروجي كان باسكو كان اندرو لايك ماي ادفايزر كان خدام واحد الهيدج فاند اند بيزيكلي كيديروا هذا الشيء سو كيقراو ديما الاكسبيرت اند ستاف واللي كانوا كيديروا ماشين ليرنينغ ولكن كانوا كيديروا لينير ريغريشن والمشكله في لينير ريغريشن الا شفتي هنايا باغ اكزومبل انا عندي كوفيسيون هنايا ديبيندز اون تايم لايك لينير ريغريشن ما يمكنش تعطيك شي حاجه ديبيندز اون تايم من غير الا كنتي after every hour تعاود دير لينير ريغريشن من الاول which is hard سو هذا هو المشكل في الموديل ديال الماشين ليرنينغ انك كيعطيك شي حاجه اللي كونستانت like recurrent neural networks صراحه ما جربش ولكن I think تقدر تكون احسن ولكن when it comes to neural network or finance ما تقدرش فريمون there's no intuition يقدر يقول لك الموديل like انفستي في هذه and then you don't really know علاش so فريمون يقدر يقول انفستي في هذه ولكن you don't know why so like one of علاش داروا لك البلاك ليترال موديل في الاول في جولدمان ساكس was ان باش البورتفوليو ديالك يكون more زعما يكون like more intuitive دونك جو بونس الا كان عندك شي recurrent neural network and you can do this يقدر يبيرفورم نفس الحاجه ولا احسن بعض المرات ولكن you have this intuition باسكو I don't know الا كنتي كتانفستي millions of dollars then it's good to have some like explanation علاش ماشي because a neural network قالها لك لا l'espérance
الموديل كلاسيك ديال الباور يعني با كونتينيو ديسكونتينيو
كاين جامبس لما كان لا كان عندك باغ اكزومبل جامبس ما تقدرش لا 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 هذا كلشي كونتيني. كاين درنا واحد الموديل اخر انه لاست يعطيك عندك بزاف الاكسبيرت، واحد عطاك فيو هنا، الاخر عطاك فيو هنا، واحد اخر عطاك فيو هنا. هي كيبقى كونتيني، ولكن في هذوك لي بوين عطاك فيهم الفيو كاين واحد ديسكونتينيتي. رايت يا باسكو هنا باغ اكزومبل هنايا واحد الفيو از اكسبايرد، كاين واحد ديسكونتينيتي كيهبط الموديل عشان يطلع صافي. جلوبال، ولكن دونك ديسكونتيني في ذاك البوان، ولكن بحال كنت عندك ايكواسيون كل انترفال. وحتى باش كدير اوبتيمال انفستمنت استراتيجي، حتى المهم كتصعب شويه باسكو ما كتبقاش تجري كونتيني، تبدا من البوان الاخر تشوف شنو وقع هنا، ترجع باللور، تبقى ترجع باللور حتى ولكن داك الشيء لا بصح هذيك نديروها الا كانوا بصح لا